Hey everyone, Pastor Nathan here. We're continuing making our way through the book of Job, or at least an overview of the book of Job. Last time, when we spent some time together, we talked about chapters 3 through 31. That is the main kind of thrust of the book, which is Job's lament, the friend's argument on, trying to defend God, if you will, from a divine retribution principle perspective. That is, Job, you're suffering because you sinned. Because we all know that God rewards the righteous and punishes the guilty, the sinner. So if you're suffering, you must have sinned. We know, as the reader, that that's not how this has worked. Chapters 1 and 2 make it very clear that Job it is not for any egregious sin of Job's, and Job is now kind of sitting in the ashes and the rubble of ruined wealth and ruined health. So Job argues from the opposite perspective. He says, well, no, I didn't do anything. I need to present my case to God because this is, from Job's perspective, unfair. That's those 29 chapters. Job's defense, the three friends, trying to convince Job that it was really his fault, and Job then saying, no, it's not my fault. I need to bring my case to God. All right, so they spent time arguing around this divine retribution principle idea, and they really haven't gotten at the question that the book really begs us to ask, which is why suffering, and then what is wisdom? We're getting towards that, but we haven't answered this question yet. So Job gets to the end of this. He makes his final defense in chapter 31, and then boom, he's done. Then this guy named Elihu arrives on the scene. Apparently he's been there the whole time, or much of the time at least. He's been listening to these older gentlemen. We learned from chapter 32 that he's a younger man. He's like, I gave y'all deference. I let y'all speak your piece, but y'all just haven't brought Job around, and you haven't done a great job of arguing for the correct worldview. So let me tell you how it is. It's essentially Elihu's attitude. So Elihu, for these 5 chapters, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 6 chapters, he goes through and he argues like this is wisdom. This is how to look at this. And presents what he believes to be new wisdom in opposition to the old wisdom of the 3 friends. However, when you look at the argument that Elihu makes, Elihu's argument is essentially this. God's holy. Who are you to question him, Job? You sinned. God's punishing your sin. It's almost identical to the argument that the old wisdom, quote unquote, has. The old wisdom of the 3 friends. And I do think Job is making a clear kind of pointed look at old and new wisdom, and looking at how kind of they're in some ways folly because they don't get the whole picture. The new wisdom is just kind of the same as the old wisdom, just kind of gussied up and maybe with a little more energy because of the younger person who's putting it forth. As I was reading this, as I was preparing this, I think about our age and how there are old worldviews that are not of God. And there are new worldviews that claim to have something new to say about God, whether it's cults, religions, or science. And yet, at the end of the day, everything apart from God and looking to God and in conversation with God is the same as the friends of Job and Elihu. It's not right. As God's going to point out later on in the book of Job, their works righteousness, or they don't quite have the full picture, or it's not a position of trust. It's a position of you got to earn your way back into God's favor. It is not a position of grace, and it is not a position of mercy and of love, at least, or a position that reflects God's heart. Doesn't reflect reality. So as followers of Christ in the 21st century, we may be tempted by new wisdom, as it were, a new thing. You're like, oh man, this new way of looking at the world is really legitimate and awesome compared to the way of Scripture, which is to go to God, to look to God, to ask God questions, and to then trust what He's doing in the world. that's kind of the point of Elihu's kind of engagement in this, or at least that's one of the things we can take away from Elihu's engagement with this. The new isn't any different than the old, and both are wrong because they don't reflect reality. Whereas Job's looking to God, asking God questions, saying, God, why are you doing this, is much closer to a reflection of reality than the three friends in Elihu. So anyhow, I hope this is helpful for you today as you're walking with Jesus and as you're walking in this world. When troubles come, when the world tempts you to look at the world a little bit differently, look at your life differently, problems, and to ask the question, what is wisdom and what is wise, that you will not follow kind of the world's perspective on God, but follow, the Word's perspective on God, and maybe even Job's perspective on God, which is to ask God the questions and to go to God and to desire that conversation as you follow Jesus in this world. Anyhow, next time we'll see what God has to say as he weighs in on the subject of suffering and wisdom and what is truly wise, and we'll go from there. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.